Hi everyone and welcome back. Now we're going to talk about, we're still on the topic of why is motion so important. We just talked about usability and we're going to dive a little bit deeper in how, motion really helps create narrative. Simply put, motion serves as an explanation to the user of how one gets to and from various places in the interface. This explanation, can be thought of in terms of coherence, the degree to which the explanation aligns with the UX, content, and mental models. Let's take a look at this example over here. Now, motion is really helping the user understand where they can go, where those other extra screens are in relation to the content of the app. So, in this case, like taking a picture, and understanding where that screen is, we're going to see how they interact with this content, filling out a form and where they're going to go next. And to imagine this without motion, if we play this interaction with a simple cut, like I've said in previous little lectures, what you're left with is that the beginning and end states of the interaction are, they're kind of different conceptually. Motion connects these kind of two concepts and ideas and offers a very, very coherent explanation. You can even take a look at this option here. This little example, it really helps you understand that when I click, this button, another controller is going to pop up from the side. If I remove it, those controllers will go away. So it literally helps the player understand how many players are going to join this game. And even just the kind of little click that we get when the user clicks on this button and presses this whole card down, the user understands that they're interacting with it and it's not just a static screen. Motion is just fundamental. It's not just an add-on, but something that requires deep consideration during the design of any two screens or even just a simple interaction. You should think of ways to actively use it throughout your design process. Now we're going to get into something a little bit more complex and we're going to talk about mental models. Mental models exist in the minds of users and designers. When we create products that we want others to consume, we always need to keep in mind that when the user interacts with that product and, they're trying to make sense of it for the first time, they have their own types of mental models. The design system itself and the mental models of the designer. So like you and me, etc. They're thinking about those two things, not necessarily actively, but they have their own understanding of how am I going to make sense of this design of this system, and us as designers are trying to, bridge that gap. Motion plays a large role in how users perceive what objects in the interface are and what they do. Motion does this by using our existing mental models or by creating new ones. Motion can really do this by using a combination of three different methods. The first one, skeuomorphic behavior. I know it's a pretty tough word. We have existing mental models for how we interact and navigate our physical environment, like picking up a cube or touching water or liquid or something else like that. If we can understand these mental models, we will actually be successful at interacting or interfacing with a user's perception and reasoning around them. So if we take a look over here, even though we don't see this very often, we do see this in certain types of design elements, whether it's very skeuomorphic or like origami-like. We are allowing people to make these kind of three-dimensional connections. With this slide up to kind of go to a next page, you can kind of see how, the user is creating this very slow ease, pulling it like it's stretching some sort of goo. And immediately we kind of make that connection because I think we've all played with like Silly Putty or Play-Doh or any type of like fun type of toy or craft like that. So it really helps kind of create that model or, make that connection between that model that you already had, or at least that understanding of how to interact with certain things. Number two is rules. So as humans, we are wired to learn rules, even though, we like to break them sometimes. And generally, as a designer, we are taught never to make the user think about the design they are using. You want to make it as easy as possible, and you want people to just kind of like effortlessly stroll through your designs. Put it more simply, we don't want to have our user learn new systems or rules. But there is an opportunity here, and I promise there is definitely an opportunity. All user experiences have and will continue to have state changes. This is essentially the change from one thing to the next. You click a button, something happens. Or you type something, something happens. Now, this can be like a small interaction or even a larger screen change. Now, simply put, there's always going to be a gap between those two things. User will expect something, and how we deliver upon that expectation, there's always going to be a little gap. Now, this gap forces the users to kind of learn. We are more than capable at learning interaction patterns because of this. If you think about the first time you used an app, sometimes there are certain interactions that may have been new to you, but all it took was 1 or 2 times to really understand. And if we really focus on creating these new rules or design patterns using motion, it could really enhance the usability of the application. Thinking about what happens when we type here, we have just a simple typing interaction that is just automatic. But as soon as they actually start to type a day of the week, we have like a pop-up come up. And we see this little notification pop up as well onto their little calendar icon. And we see that kind of skeuomorphic behavior as well as this expands as they reach the second line. And another pop-up show up as soon as they start to actually type in file. We can see a loader. And all this it really helps the user to understand the different types of rules they may have to learn to actually use the system. But once they do learn those rules, motion really helps enhance this whole experience, which would have otherwise probably been very manual for the user. So there definitely is an opportunity. The third way is through interactional and visual cues. Visual cues in static designs imply that there is some sort of cause and effect in the interface. The motion behavior, the effect, is what comes after the actual initial cue. That motion either aligns or conflicts with these cues. This is a big opportunity for designers to get right. Now, if we think about how the user actually interacts with this, we can see that there is like a new notification. These types of things that pop out and really help us as users and designers, continue to bridge that gap between understanding what's happening on the screen and what the user should be doing. If that were to just statically pop up, we may miss it. If this is maybe something that happens repeatedly a few times, it's very hard to miss, and it could be kind of subtle in the way we execute upon it. So now the user knows that they should tap on their phone, or there is like a new message, or their cart is full. This could be used in so many different types of ways. If we even think about the different types of visual cues we get when we use like these types of reactions, I know Facebook's really popular when it comes to this kind of micro interaction that they've come up with. This one is an alternative to that, but seeing these kind of little interactions, this is kind of purely for delight, but it could really help strengthen brand as well. Now, if we take a look at all the things we just talked about, motion has the potential to connect with those mental models and drive actual results within your product. Motion in digital products is a very powerful tool. This is very important for designers who look to make a great product that connects with users. It can be very challenging to deliver on because of its natural complexity. It's not really easy, to be honest. But when it's really done well and you give it enough time and enough preparation, it actually has the potential to really connect with those mental models and create a very successful product. So that is why motion is so important.